Okay, a couple of thoughts to share with you. I don't know about this program here. Okay. Okay, this is just a kind of a technical thing. I had two boys come down to visit me over vacation from northern Michigan. They brought bugs with them, so if you stay at a distance, that'll be cool. I don't think I'm infectious. For a while this morning, I thought I was going to lose my voice. That happened last year when one of them came down, in which case, if I cease talking, then obviously the lecture's over. Last year it lasted for a week, but I will send you out a broadcast so you know whether or not you're suddenly an online course until my voice comes back. Also, I don't think I'm going to have to run out of the classroom this hour, but if I do, I'll just call timeout and everybody wait for me, please. Other than that, all your essays are done. I think their essay did not download right, and frankly, I didn't have a chance to look before I came, so go back and review. If you don't have a grade for last week's essay, go in and read it. It just didn't download right, so resend it to me in a different format, maybe PDF or RTF or something, so I can grade your essay. There's only one of them that I know of, and I think it was one of the lady students, so just take a look for me, okay? Make sure you get the grades. Anything for me before we start today? Okay, today I want to talk about, and Wednesday, I want to talk about a German philosopher named Friedrich Nietzsche. Does anyone know anything about Nietzsche? Go ahead. What about Nietzsche?
I've read stuff, a lot of stuff with the Theosophical Society.
Yeah.
Referenced him quite a bit. That's H.P. Blavatsky.
Yeah.
They referenced him a bit.
What do they say about him?
I don't remember.
Probably bad things.
No.
Oh, good. Because he's got a bad rap, but he's not a bad guy. He's just weird. Yes?
Didn't he have syphilis at the end, and they don't know if his writing should be taken seriously because his mind wasn't sound?
Yeah, how many of you are in psychology? I don't know if that's true. I mean, those things. Anybody in psychology? They study Freud? He spent his whole life putting coke up his nose, you know. It's just amazing to me who we make icons of, but we do. No, I hear that. I've heard that. He also married his third cousin, and they wondered if that wasn't some kind of incest. He said God is dead. That's good, yeah. He is kind of one of what we call the progenitors or early founders of it. That's really good too. Schopenhauer really starts at maybe. We kind of see some early footnotes there. Cool. Anybody else? Anybody know his relationship to some German guy named Adolf? Nobody? Nietzsche gets blamed, and I'll straighten this out for you. Nietzsche gets blamed for Hitler's idea of the Aryan race, the superior race, Superman. Incorrect. Anybody know German in here? Nietzsche played a lot of word games. The German word that he used for evolutionary intelligence, I'll explain that in detail, was Übermensch. Mensch in German is man, and Über is the over man. He was talking about progressing to the next level. He wasn't talking about eugenics and making some superior race. He's gotten blamed for that, and Hitler and the superior race. It had nothing to do with Nietzsche. Hitler misinterprets Nietzsche like a lot of people do. That's why I want to go over him today. So that is kind of an introduction to him. Let me say this. Nietzsche is a moralist in some regards. Nietzsche comes along Western history. He's a German. He comes along Western history. And he has some issues with our understanding of morality. He says, what are the foundations of morality? For example, where does it come from? In other words, what's the origin of morality? Now, I've taught you, we went to the ethics side, that all actions have a motive, they have an action, and a consequence to them. But where does our interpretation of morality come from? That's a valid question. Nietzsche says no one bothers to ask that. We assume that morality is just part of the human experience. What Nietzsche is going to say is morality is kind of a cover that we put on our behavior to identify whether it's good or bad behavior. He says it's not indigenous, it's not built into behavior. It's something we've put over it to examine it. It's kind of a lens so we can see whether people are good or bad people. He's got an interesting reason for saying that. What supports morality? Is morality universal? We've talked about that. Relative cultural relativism versus absolute values. Why in our struggle for existence should we limit our behavior in any way that might be called moral? In other words, why bother to be moral? Now, when you hear that question, it's like, I mean, come on, Friedrich. I mean, people do things that seem to be appropriate and people do things that seem not to be appropriate. I mean, what are you eating for breakfast in the morning? Well, Nietzsche's got a different way of looking at life itself, and I'm going to open that vista for you. And when you look at that, he happens to be wrong about morality. Personal opinion, I rarely share it. But his look at life, I think, is very accurate. And he's doing this over 100 years before we get into string theory and quantum physics. He's got an insight into the underlying essence of nature itself. And I don't know how he comes to this. Did he guess it? Was he doing coke up his nose with who knows what he was doing? But he's got an interesting analysis that I think will make sense to you. Close association between morality and all major world religions. Is there a divine source or foundation for morality? All say there is. How can I know what's right? What does God say? What happens then is in Nietzsche's world, we inherit this thing called divine command theory of ethics, or the divine right of kings. Now help me out. I have 8 classes. Have I gone into this in detail with you? Okay. What happens in the Western world is, based on a religious foundation, I don't want to get into a religious discussion with you, although we can. In one reading of this text, the sacred text, God gives humanity dominion over the earth, creates humanity and then gives dominion or rule to humanity. And it's been interpreted. It certainly says that God created, the word in Hebrew is Adam, could mean either man or humanity, and gave them dominion, not domination over the earth. Okay, fine. So what happens then is throughout recorded history, at least 8,000 years of recorded history, some people have read that and interpret that to mean that the divine authority gave a single person authority over everything and everybody. Whether it's king, you can substitute queen, Caesar, pharaoh, emperor, dictators. This is where divine command theory of ethics, or the divine right of kings, comes from. Now, again, I don't want to step on toes. I don't want to make this a religious argument. What happens then is this book becomes the genesis, or becomes the origin of this concept of the divine right of kings. Now, how do I say this in the right way? If you buy into this system of interpretation, then this person has absolute control and power. And they're there for a reason, to control the way things work. You don't want to go south one day. And because most of the world is kept ignorant, you realize modern education is something brand new. Right, and here I'll step on some toes with this. You know, in England, the 1611 only King James authorized version of the Bible. King James did authorize that version, but not because he was necessarily a religious man. England spoke in different, we call it vernaculars. Like down here in the South, when I moved down here, I go to a restaurant and they say, "What do you want to drink?" And I say, "Give me a diet pop." And they say, "Isn't that your pop sitting next to you?" Down here we call it sody. Well, sody, you guys call it soda. Sody, right? Different ways of words to express the same thing. So that became a universal way of teaching someone a common language. It became the King's English is what we called it. And so they all learned how to drop the vernacular, their special little, and they all spoke the same language. That's a very influential book. All of these religious books throughout the world become very influential. And they all point to a divine source. And if you can draw a connection between that divine source and you have unlimited power. And so this is what the divine command theory of ethics, or the divine right of kings, is all about. Nietzsche says that's problematic. Suddenly we have somebody who's telling us what the divine thinks, what's good and bad, what's right and wrong. Okay? Nietzsche finds a problem with that. Here's a video of the divine command theory of ethics. This comes out of the latest Robin Hood movie with Russell Crowe. Anybody seen it? If you understand the divine right, what goes on, let me give you a quick background in this. What goes on in this is England is under attack from France, and France is about to kick their tails. And the king's freaking out because The original king is out in the Middle East fighting the holy wars out there. And the king has really messed up with the people of England. And now these French ships are coming across the English Channel, and he's freaking out. And he knows if he can't assemble an army, he's going to get his tail kicked, and he's going to lose England. So he asks all these noblemen to fight for good old England. And they say, well, maybe. We want power. We just don't want titles to land. We want real power. It's the beginning of the Magna Carta, the shared power. We're the government of and by and for the people. And the king agrees to it. And so the English nobles get together and they go out to the English Channel and they defeat the French. But the king agrees that he's going to share power. It's a little hard to understand his language, but listen to it, okay? This is the document, the agreement.
I did not make myself king. God did. King by divine right. Now you come to me this document, seeking to limit the authority given to me by God. Or you, madam. Look to your mistakes instead. You are unfortunate that I am your merciful mood. But as for Roman Rothschild, that nation sir, for the crimes of theft and incitement to cause unrest, who pretended to be a knight of the realm of crime punishable by death, I declare him from this day forth to be an outlaw, to be hunted all the days of his life, until his corpse and body is carried for foxes and crows.
Oh, it locked up on me. So if this starts to play in the background, okay. Is it playing in the background? Where is it playing in the background?
I did not make myself.
No, I didn't. Off you go. There you go. So that's an example of what goes on then. As a result of that, Nietzsche says what happens then is we develop what's called a master-slave morality. The person in charge, king, queen, Caesar, pharaoh, emperor, dictator, gets to make all the rules. Their rules reflect their values, master morality. If you're not part of the master's group, you're the slave group. You're subordinate. You need to do what we tell you to do because God put us in charge. And whatever we say, therefore, must necessarily be what God would want you to do. So he says that what happens then, because of this error in understanding the relationship in the social contract that people have with one another, the king gets to make all these decisions. What is good is what God commands. Problematic, which God are we talking about? How do we know what are divine commands? If good is only what God commands, then nothing is good in and of itself. If God doesn't command something as good, then we have no independent standards of good.